Change a thought, save a life. What is that about? Patricia Noll's going to tell us because she is up next. It is the USA Radio Daily, 34 minutes after the hour. Patricia, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, Gary. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, glad to have you on board. What is Change a Thought, Save a Life about?
Well, it's about noticing the unnoticed, and that is that the critical importance of self-dependent esteem in a world that's dominated by other-dependent esteem. We've been teaching the wrong thing for a long time, and if we can start to change a thought, especially a thought about the way we think about ourselves, we can start to save lives that way.
Give me a little more detail. What have we been teaching that we need to change?
Sure. We have been teaching what I have discovered to be other-dependent esteem. And what I mean by that is that the esteem that we have for ourselves comes from someone or something outside of us. In other words, a little history, Gary, if you want it. It started right after World War II ended, and we were in the factories, and we had lots of space available and lots of money going around. And so we were making, all of a sudden, refrigerators, TVs, washing machines, whatever. And what happened was, it was like, they have one of those. Oh, I want one of those too. I don't even know what it is, but I want one. We really reinstituted the old, ancient keeping up with the Joneses. And at that time, we started teaching people that they were as good as their stuff, as the things that they had, or perhaps the people that they knew. So it all came from outside of us, and we're still doing it today. And we've been teaching other-dependent esteem, thinking it was real self-esteem, and then we wonder why no one's happy, why they're unhappy, sometimes angry, rageful, and some of the things that we see going on in the world today.
So we get our self-esteem from living in a 5,000-square-foot house and driving a new Cadillac, and that's...
Yes.
And that's the problem.
And that is really at the root of it. And that's what we're not looking at, is the root. If I don't like myself, I don't like you. I might fake it. I might like you sometimes or think I do. But if I'm not okay with me, I am not okay with you either. And that's what we see playing out. If you start to look around, it's just something that we haven't been taught, and yet when we are taught and we change the way we see ourselves, life changes.
So, physical things are not all that important. You want to get your self-worth from inside. So how do you make that change? What do you do?
Change the way you think, which is a process, which is what Good With Me is all about. It's a simple approach to really getting your thinking clean and really knowing what you're thinking about yourself. I was just on the phone with somebody yesterday, first time, said an appointment, I struggle every day. I don't like who I am, but I fool everybody. I don't want anyone to know. This is the way I feel about myself. I'm depressed. And the list went on and on. And the first thing that happens is she has no clue what she's thinking about herself at all. And so as we explored it, it was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, that was stupid. Oh, they have that and I don't. They're better than I am. And the list just keeps going on because it's what we were taught. I was taught that. And I went through that process. And I thought, if I could only be like them, I want to be happy like they're happy. And little did I know that they were faking it just like I was faking it. And pretending that everything is fine on the outside, but on the inside it isn't.
So, I'm trying to kind of wrap my mind about this. what
Sure.
what was your epiphany? I mean, how did you figure this out?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I have had a drug and alcohol treatment program for over 30 years. I wrote a treatment manual years ago. It was endorsed by Deepak Chopra, Dr. Larry Dossey, and people like that. But what I've learned in working with over 10,000 participants through these years, probably way more than that, what I saw was finally I saw this common thread running through everyone. And, even in a drug and alcohol treatment program, the drugs and the alcohol were the symptoms of the problem. So the things that we have or think we need to have in order to be good enough are the symptom of the problem that's going on with us. So in working with those people, and what I liken it to is like the undercurrent that is in the oceans or in the Gulf, or I live near the Gulf. So, and the undercurrent is always there, and if you don't know about it or aren't aware of it, you can get caught in that undercurrent. It can pull you in. It can pull you under. You can drown in it. And that's the way this thinking about ourselves, that we just aren't quite good enough, or we need one more of this to be better than someone else, is like that undercurrent. And that, I think, is what happens to human beings. We get pulled into it without knowing it because we aren't taught, and then we drown in it. And how do we drown in it? It might be depression, it might be anger, it might be anxiety, it might be this feeling of I'm not good enough, I wish I had this, I need that, and the list goes on.
If you just turned the radio on, Patricia Noll with us with the Good With Me Foundation, and you talk about mass shootings. Everybody's blaming the gun, and I never thought it was the gun. It's like I always say, that's like blaming obesity on the fork. But you think there are some warning signs for potential mass shooters. What are some of the warning signs?
Well, some of the warning signs are some of what I just mentioned a little bit ago. They might be depressed. They don't feel that they're good enough, that there's something wrong with them. And many of them have been taught that by parents, and I don't blame parents for any of this, but, if a parent says, you aren't good enough, you'll never amount to anything, you're really awful. For example, I mentioned a couple of them in a news release that I just released, but one whose mother just every day said, you're bad. There's really something wrong with you, until he ended up believing that. I had a client a while back whose mother would drink alcohol, have her friends over, and he was a little boy. They would take his clothes off and tie him up to a tree and use him as a piñata.
What?
Yes.
A mother?
I thought I had heard it all until then. And this person was so angry, now as an adult, with a child of his own, but as an adult, he was so angry he could not get along with hardly anyone. And he went through this program, changing the way he thought about himself and the way he saw things. And his son sent me a message and said, thank you for what you do. So he's changed completely. But yeah, things like that happen. And what happens when we're talking about the mass shootings, even the suicides fall into this area, is that if I don't like me, and then I don't think anyone else likes me either, now what just happened? a recipe for disaster. Because now I'm not getting any feel-good feelings whatsoever. If I'm getting some from other people who like me or approve of me or say, oh, you did a good job, that's nice, even though I don't believe that inside, at least it can kind of keep me buoyed up so that I don't have to go looking for approval. Maybe somewhere in a dark, toxic place. And sometimes that will happen with social media, but it isn't only social media. I've had people in the past that I've worked with that have been drug dealers in the Colombian drug cartel or the leader of one of the worst gangs in the world. It can manifest differently in different individuals. And what happens is I'm so angry, I'm so rageful, there's nothing good about me. And so if I find this approval for being angry, and our society today in the last few years has certainly given the expression of anger an okay. And so now I can go ahead and be angry, and there are people that applaud that. There are people that approve of that. Hey, you go, you got it. Until someone says, you know what, I'm going to shoot up this elementary school today. Oh, yeah, okay. But why don't we notice it? Because so many of these behaviors have become a new normal for us today. Follow me? Does that make sense?
If a father isn't in the home, can a child think to themselves, he abandoned me because I'm not good enough? They could. Well, and sometimes that can be compounded perhaps by a mother that's always blaming the father for, he left us or whatever. So that can come into play. But yes, it can happen. Oh, there's something wrong with me. My father doesn't want to be around me. Sure. It can come from, but again, that comes from outside of them, right? Mm-hmm. If we started teaching them as a small child that, you're really okay. Inside, you were born with value. And that's something we don't talk about. You were born that way. You have value because you were born. Now, you can do something with it or you don't have to. It's up to you. Interesting. If you just turned the radio on, we are chatting with Patricia Noll, the Good With Me Foundation. It is just Good With Me Foundation. And the website is goodwithmefoundation.org. So are you looking for, and I know organizations like yours are always in need of support, but are you also looking for counselors and patients, or clients, I might argue? I'm not...
Well, yes. We have a mission, and that's to help people who need help, who want help. And the foundation was formed to be able to provide help to so many people who just can't afford it. They don't have the money for it, and yet they want it. I get phone calls every week. Oh, I'm looking, I need help with this or help with that. Oh, well, this is what it costs, and that was before the foundation. So now, yes, we are always wanting to raise funds. We're actually filming a documentary right now that is to go global with our movement. It's a global humanitarian movement. We started filming. Our first filming was of Stuart Pearce, who was the voice coach for Princess Diana in the UK. And he talks about how we can change our thinking to start feeling good about ourselves. So it's a documentary that is all about the stunning, critical importance of self-esteem in a world that's dominated by other dependent esteem, and it reveals the root of this worldwide suffering. It introduces a clear approach to, as our mission is, to elevate human dignity for all people, wherever you are, whoever you are.
Can you have too much self-esteem? Would that, could that turn into arrogance?
No. Arrogance is actually other dependent esteem. It's just a different manifestation.
All right.
And it's
Are
a
you
smoke screen.
Are you a 501c3?
Yes.
So it's a tax-deductible donation. So whether you want to help or you want help, go to goodwithmefoundation.org. Patricia, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
All right. Glad to have you on the USA Radio Daily.